Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we re-stepping back in time to a case that has puzzled investigators and haunted a community for over half a century. It is a story that begins with the simple joy of two sisters heading to the movies and ends in a baffling mystery that remains unsolved to this day. This is the tragic story of Barbara and Patricia Grimes. Our story begins in Chicago in the days leading up to Christmas, 1956. The city was aglow with festive lights, and a new kind of music was sweeping the nation. At the center of it all was a charismatic young singer named Elvis Presley. 15-year-old Barbara Grimes and her 13-year-old sister Patricia were just two of his millions of devoted fans. Like so many teenagers across America, they knew the lyrics to all his songs and dreamed of seeing him perform. On the evening of December 28th, the sisters got their wish. In a way, an Elvis movie, Love Me Tender, was playing at the Brighton Park Theater, about a mile and a half from their home. After begging their mother, Loretta, they were finally given permission to go. They had just over $2 between them, enough for their tickets and some snacks. Loretta's last words to them were firm but loving. Be home by midnight. The girls, overjoyed, promised they would and headed out into the cold Chicago night, full of excitement. But as the clock ticked past midnight, Loretta Grimes began to worry. The girls were responsible and had never broken curfew before. When 2 a.m. arrived with no sign of them, the worry turned to panic. She started making frantic phone calls, first to their friends, then to the police. The initial response, however, was frustratingly dismissive. The police believed the girls were likely just typical teenage runaways, perhaps trying to get to Memphis to see Elvis himself. The idea, while seemingly far-fetched, was a common occurrence at the time. Despite her insistence that her daughters would never do such a thing, Loretta's pleas were initially downplayed. But as days turned into a week, and then two, the disappearance of the Grimes sisters became one of the biggest news stories in Chicago history. Their faces were everywhere, on newspapers, on television, and on thousands of flyers posted across the city. The entire community rallied together. Search parties, composed of volunteers and police, combed through parks, abandoned buildings, and the city's vast network of sewers. The search was one of the largest missing persons investigations Chicago had ever seen. As the search intensified, tips and supposed sightings began flooding in. People from all over the country claimed to have seen the girls. One report placed them at a local restaurant, another at a bus station. A particularly compelling lead came from a woman who claimed she saw two girls resemble Barbara and Patricia get into a car with two young men on the night they disappeared. Another witness, a friend of the girls, said she saw them at the movie theater, looking happy and in good spirits. The conflicting accounts only deepened the mystery and sent investigators down numerous dead ends. The Elvis Presley connection became a central theme in the media coverage. The theory that the girls had run away to follow their idol persisted, fueled by sensationalist headlines. Even Elvis himself became involved. From his studio in Hollywood, he recorded a public plea broadcast on the radio, urging the sisters to return home. "If you are good Presley fans," he said, "you'll go home and ease your mother's worries." The nation listened, hoping his words might reach them, but the silence continued. Then, on January 22, 1957, nearly a month after they vanished, the search came to a devastating end. A construction worker named Leonard Prescott was driving down a deserted stretch of German Church Road in a suburb west of Chicago. He spotted something unusual in a ditch by the side of the road. As he got closer, he made a horrifying discovery. It was the frozen bodies of two young girls. lying partially covered in snow. Dental records soon confirmed the unthinkable. It was Barbara and Patricia Grimes. The discovery shifted the case from a missing persons investigation to a homicide inquiry. The initial autopsy, however, brought more questions than answers. The Cook County coroner, Walter McCarran, conducted the examination and came to a shocking conclusion. He stated that there were no obvious signs of fatal injury, no bullet wounds, no stab wounds, no signs of a struggle. Bafflingly, he concluded that the girls had likely died from secondary shock due to exposure to the cold. He controversially timed their deaths to around January 7th, suggesting they had been alive for more than a week after they disappeared. This theory was immediately met with skepticism, both from the public and from other medical professionals. How could two girls have survived for over a week in the brutal Chicago winter without anyone seeing them? Loretta Grimes was adamant that the coroner was wrong. She believed her daughters had been harmed the night they went missing. Her intuition was later supported by a second independent pathologist who examined the case files. This new expert found evidence that was overlooked or misinterpreted in the initial autopsy and concluded that the girls had in fact been murdered. But by then, precious time and crucial evidence had been lost. With the case officially a homicide, the investigation focused on finding a suspect. The spotlight quickly fell on a 21-year-old drifter and part-time dishwasher named Edward Benibet. Bedwell bore a striking resemblance to Elvis Presley and had a criminal record. After an intense interrogation, he confessed to the crime, providing a detailed account of meeting the girls and spending several days with them before they died in his company. For a moment, it seemed the case was solved. However, Bedwell's story quickly fell apart. His confession was filled with inconsistencies and details that didn't match the known facts of the case. He later recanted, claiming he had been coerced by police during a grueling, multi-day interrogation. With no physical evidence linking him to the crime scene or the victims, the charges against him were eventually dropped. Bedwell, the only person ever charged in the Grimes sisters' murder, was released. Over the years, several other potential suspects emerged, but none of the leads ever resulted in an arrest. One theory pointed to another convicted killer who had operated in the area, but there was never enough evidence to formally connect him to the Grimes case. Another involved a local man who reportedly confessed to his wife on his deathbed, but this too remained an unsubstantiated claim. The case grew cold, but it never faded from public memory. It became a cautionary tale for generations of Chicago parents and children. The story of two bright, happy girls who went to see a movie and never came home left an indelible scar on the city's conscience. It marked a turning point for many, a moment when the perceived innocence of the 1950s was shattered by a brutal reality. Today, more than 65 years later, the murder of Barbara and Patricia Grimes remains officially unsolved. The files are still open, but the trail has long gone cold. The witnesses are gone, the suspects have passed away, and the physical evidence has degraded over time. What happened to the sisters between the time they left the Brighton Park Theater and when their bodies were discovered on that lonely road remains a dark, unanswered question. It's a tragic reminder that behind every unsolved case are real people, families left without answers, and communities left to wonder. The story of the Grimes sisters is a haunting puzzle, a piece of Chicago history that continues to mystify and sadden us all. Thank you for joining me for this look into a truly heartbreaking case. If you found this video informative, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel for more content like this. Your support helps us continue to tell these important stories. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one.